Good morning. I think I'm one of the two funders in the room this morning. So thank you, Wu, wherever you are, for calling us out. And I have to agree that, yes, we are oftentimes that fence that's kind of hard to break through. So part of the problem. Hoping to engage in dialogue of how do we change that. So I've been tasked to introduce Michael Johnston, founder and president of Hewitt and Johnston Consultants. And he has 30 years of experience in fundraising, so slightly intimidating to have to do this. Thank you, Eli. He has worked around the world and has engaged with a number of nonprofit organizations, but also has a very deep context in sort of digital fundraising and was behind some of the early digital fundraising campaigns in the late 90s. Michael tells me that he was also an aerobics instructor at the Y, boxing too, so he may get us on our feet and get us moving a little bit. And I am very actually excited about the topic that he is going to be talking to us about. It's something that I have spent a lot of time thinking about. It's the work that I've been actively funding for several years, and I'm very curious what he has to say about design thinking and how it can be used for better social outcomes. So Michael, please join us here.
I think I've just got that. Well, I have to change my relaxed perspective. We've got 4 hours to compress into a half an hour, and not to give you vertigo and to cover it accurately and well, we're going to have to move along. But when I saw Jedi unicorns, I just kind of sat back and smiled and relaxed. Got to go fast. So, just quickly, I have a fundraising tattoo. When I was old and stupid, I got it. We can talk about that later. I'm an expert in the Japanese Imperial Navy, 1939 to 1945. I have no idea why. But what I think when I talk about those things, it just reminds me that I'm an omnivorous person, that I like things all coming together and connecting, and that's what we're going to look at over the next half hour. And I think this is absolutely true. Technology for social impact is often not human-centered, that it's done in isolation. There's a technology fetishism. We've got to get over that, and we've found over the last 6 years, and we'll tell that story, that design thinking has helped us make it human-centered. And so the story started for us about 6 years ago. We bumped into some large technology corporations and the Stanford Design School, and they had a process that we thought would be helpful if we brought it across into our social impact sector. And so when we looked at their process, we thought, oh my gosh, we're going to get people together, we're going to work in a room, and we're going to come up with human-centric designs that make a difference and make the world a better place. And so for us, we took a look at this 16-step process. Remain calm. We'll come back to that. That this process coming out of companies like Oracle, out of Microsoft, it asks us to understand the user, refine and redefine problems, apply solutions, innovations, and improvements in a way where we're thinking about the constituent, and we're constituent-focused. So I like to call it, there are all kinds of names. Methodical empathy, rigorous empathy, and some people call it structured empathy. So using design thinking to structure the way we stand in someone's shoes. And so it's been a weird journey. 6 years ago, we bumped into the senior CX and mapping consultants for Oracle. And we met them, and we went to some of their sessions, and we went, we've got to bring this across. And they said, sure. And so they traveled all around the world, gave a lot of free time to kind of take this design thinking and give it to the social impact sector. And it was fun for us to take a look at what they were doing. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Oh, I'm going to the Pittsburgh Steelers to do some constituent-centric work. Then what are you doing? Then I'm going to Monsanto. Then I'm going to... And there was such a rigor that we just wanted to bring it across. Does that make sense? Okay. And so fundamentally for us, when we look at how design thinking and customer experience mapping is helpful to us, attitudes drive behaviors that impact or drive results. And changing experiences change attitudes, change behaviors, change result, whatever that result is. We've got lots of recordings, lots of things that we can spoil you rotten with after today, but that's one of the key concepts for us as we brought design thinking over to the social impact sector. And for me, it was weird that Oracle, a $50 billion a year cloud-based company, was reminding us that we should stand in the shoes of the constituents we work with and use that very human ability, cognitive empathy, right, to stand in someone's shoes. We're very good at it. Humans have that ability, and it reminded us to use that within a structured environment, structured empathy, okay? It's a warning, right? Empathy, and it was weird. There was on CBC Radio on the weekend, they were talking about empathy, that empathy can lead to a number of things. You can stand in someone's shoes, right, and connect with them, but empathy can also create tribalism, right? That, right, you want to relate and try to relate to those like you, right? And it creates division. So I'm saying let's use it for good. Let's stand in the shoes of constituent groups we serve and others we don't always connect with. So just a warning. So for us, it's how do we use empathy with structure to help with technology? It can help with lots of things. So there's some work that we're starting to do with the Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, and it's standing in the shoes of oncology nurses because 27.4% of oncology nurses leave the Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, and these are very difficult professionals to find, and we're using structured empathy to understand their journeys. But in this case, we're talking today about using this approach to implement, to change, to customize, to improve our use of technology in the social impact sector. And so I mentioned to you there are 16 steps in this approach. If you look in your workbook, there's an exam. No, I'm joking. This is what it looks like. And guys, this takes us 4 hours from start to finish. 4 hours, and that's it. We get people in a room, cross-functionally, right, getting on the walls, working together through the 16 steps, and coming up with innovations, improvements, things that they can do together through common problem solving, innovative thinking, in this case, to drive technology improvement, innovation, better use of the technologies around social impact. And it looks like that. And there are lots of free resources. You can see one at the bottom, designingsX.com. And one of the reasons it works when we get in a room together and use design thinking to better implement technology for social change is because human beings, some people say we are just giant pattern recognition devices. That's all we are. Just hundreds of millions of receptors. Hey, tens of thousands of years ago, there's a pattern here. Things are growing, and then winter comes, and we need to build an agrarian. We notice patterns, and we are very good at it. And so when we do design thinking, we're using colors and tactile things and shapes, because together in a room, through design thinking, and you use these tools of color and other things, we see patterns. Our brains are very good at picking up on patterns, and those patterns may lead to improvements in technology, in customizing and using what we've already got or what we need to bring into the shop to improve what we do. Does that make sense? So I wanted to show you one example around design thinking and Doctors Without Borders. So we got a cross-functional team in a room, people who worked in the field, right, who had worked overseas, people who were in the office who were in communications, people who were in IT, and brought them together. And we worked for hours in a day in a 16-step process, wanting to see different constituent journeys. Some were volunteers, some were donors, it all depended. And here was one outcome from that design thinking process. And first, in this design thinking, we created personas. You've all heard about that, both empirically driven and fictionalized representations of a constituent group. We worked on design thinking around technology improvements at the end of the day. Just come and bug the heck out of me afterwards. We have a full case study on Doctors Without Borders, and you can see the work that was done on the walls, digitized. I'm jumping here, because I've got 25 minutes, to show they worked together and came up with an action plan, and that action plan talked about the things like, and we just heard this in a lightning talk, for a middle donor program of tailoring, so they mapped the journey and they realized that someone giving $5,000 a year was being treated the same as someone giving $25. And they didn't all realize that. And by working together, mapping it across, they went, oh my gosh. And then they found the moments where they could leverage new technology to improve that relationship. Does that make sense? Okay. You'll also be tested on this. So this is Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis. And 2 months ago, we got in a room and we mapped different constituents. Think about this. So design thinking and mapping is a great opportunity to bring cross-functional teams together. So what did we do for Riley's? We brought hospital staff, the chief medical officer, the head of surgery, the head of patient care, right, with the foundation staff, right? The folks who are using the technology to ask for money, the people who are asking for major gifts, the people who do Marcoms. Does that make sense, right? And we brought them all together, and cross-functionally, they mapped things like, I'm a patient or a patient family member, and what's my journey from the hospital and afterwards? They'd never done that. And so they map all of this out, and here are the kinds of things that appeared. So growing a grateful patient program. They have implemented something called Being a Hero, and it's a monthly giving program. And they mapped together and they realized family members could they could create an app where people could order hero gear. So the children who are in bed, right, at the hospital, having treatment, could order a mask, right, a cape. And they're creating a room where people will use their mobile phones, order a piece of hero gear, right, and it'll come. But to do that, you need to leave your email, right? And hence begins, right, a cultivation journey with family and friends around the service that Riley provides. Does that make sense? Right? And you're not going to come up with this, right? Creative ideas, innovations that come from cross-functional teams working together. I'm reticent to use the word mission after that earlier presentation, but when the mission of the hospital, right, is represented deeply by these cross-functional teams, they come up with new technology improvements. Okay? And when we use design thinking and bring teams together, not only do we create business process improvements like you saw in that last one, right? Linear, kind of this happens, then that, then we add this, that's better. Great ideas just fall from the tree. So this is an example from a Toronto-based hospital, and we brought together, you can see, director of surgery, director of anesthesiology, director of pediatrics, and one doctor, she put up her hand and went, oh, she's mapping in a corner. Hold it. We have free Wi-Fi. And everyone went, yeah. Well, when I go to the airport, it's sponsored by Amex or something. And then I don't have to leave my email, but it kind of looks like I have to. Why doesn't the foundation sponsor the Wi-Fi at the hospital? We have 850,000 people a year go through the hospital. And everyone just said, oh my gosh. And so they implemented this. So they used a technology from the foundation, and up popped, and it takes executives sometimes, right? The CEO of the foundation got together with the CEO of the hospital after that design thinking and said, this is a great idea, let's make this happen. So senior leadership made it happen. You had to sign in and leave some contact information. And in the 5 months since going live, they grew their email file by 30% in just a few months. And for them, it's a big thing. It took them 7 years to get to 10,000 at the foundation. Now they're doubling that size every year or more. So I'm just saying, when you use design thinking for common problem solving to meet together in a 16-step process, good ideas just pop out. And they often don't come from, let's say in fundraising, from the fundraising side. They come from, right, the mission staff, the other parts of the shop. Okay? So culture, the impact of design thinking on culture. I think design thinking for us forces organizations to look at themselves. So as you're using a structured, empathic approach to look at how you're treating constituents, you begin to look at what I call alignments and misalignments. So you're starting to look at staffing, skills, structure, technology, and where are the gaps, right? So some organizations have the culture. Go get them. We're going to innovate. Nothing's standing in our way. We have skilled humans, right, who can do it. But they're in the wrong department, right? The structure, right, is holding them back. So it's one thing for you to remember. When you use design thinking to common problem solve, to find improvements and solutions, part of it is driving and giving you the opportunity to look at alignment and misalignment within the organization itself to implement better technology in this case. Does that make sense? Okay. And so let's just do a little work on your part. So score yourself culturally, right, to create new and improved technology solutions to further fuel mission and fundraising and engagement. 5, you rock. Score yourself now, culture. If you were doing that alignment chart, just guess, it's intuition. Give yourself from 5 to 1. 1, technically, we suck, culturally. Give yourself 5 through 1. Score now. Okay? And then staff. So staff around skills, right? And the ability to implement new technologies. Give yourself a score from 5 through 1. 1, we don't even know what the internet is. 2, 5, like we're building our own apps at night after work. Okay? So give yourself a score. And then last, infrastructure, right? Have you got the, and again, make it vague, from 5 to 1. Not the people, not the culture, but everything else. Score yourself. Because now look at the scores and say which ones, right, are there ready to help no matter what, and which ones are impediments. And by using a design thinking process, we dig deeper, right, together to uncover those misalignments. And so this is Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego, and that's Steve Jennings, the CDO. And they did this design thinking process because they were coming towards a $500 million campaign. They wanted to reach new constituents. They wanted to get better technology in-house to reach to new constituents in the San Diego area to help them raise. Well, I guess in a capital campaign, the little gifts are like the algae eaters in the aquarium of fundraising. But he wanted technology to help in that area. And through the work, this is what came out. We had tech, talent, tactics, implementations in those arrows of new staff skill training, new technology implementations, all of those things. Uncovered because we brought cross-functional teams together, okay? UX. So not customer experience, how does design thinking help on the UX side? Right? So not the totality of an experience, right, and how they connect, but how do you use design thinking, let's say a website redesign. Hands up if you've done a website redesign in the last few years. 75% of you. So we just thought 2 years ago, let's push, right, that structured empathy approach across and help us, in this case, right, do a more rigorous, engaged, deeper UX analysis to inform a subsequent either redesign or improvements to our technology and website. So Pet Partners is a Seattle-based national charity, and how did they do it, right? They got interviews, they did data survey, they created the personas based on the empirical data collection of who's coming to visit the website. Remain calm. So you can look at this, but these are the kinds of things. And it's weird, and think about this. So we met at O'Hare Airport because there were so many, so we brought outside agency partners, 5 of them. We brought staff from around the country, volunteers, and we all ended up at the airport in Chicago. And we rented a room, and then we just went crazy for 5 hours, and we started to map, right? The user experience, what's broken, what we can fix, right? And have all of that inform, right, the improvements to the technology moving forward. So very hands-on. Technology for social impact, to go back to the start, not human-centered, right? Design thinking, come on. Cognitive empathy, pattern recognition, and the power of oxytocin. What do I mean by that? So when earlier I saw my colleague Tamara from UBC VGH, I know this is gonna sound weird, but when humans get together face to face, we actually involuntarily produce higher amounts of hormones, like oxytocin, like dopamine. What does that do? It increases trust, understanding, connection. So in design thinking, it's structured, but structured in a way where we get face to face and we talk to each other. And then we naturally produce hormones in higher amounts. So design thinking forces some of that, right? It forces some of what we are as humans, right? To stand in people's shoes and to structure that, bringing us together and leveraging the power of oxytocin and leveraging the power of imagination. So in design thinking, there reaches a point in the day where I look over at a CFO and I say, I'm now asking for people to come up with innovations with no budget restrictions. And they tremble. But we want people, we do a reality check. So design thinking, all of these things come together and good things happen. So I just wanted to leave to say, I've been doing this stuff for 30 plus years. Back in 1996, I'll tell you a story, and then we'll come to the end. Amnesty International and Greenpeace International came to me and said, we would like to take people's credit cards online. And I was in an old warehouse in Toronto, and I said, there's a porn company in our warehouse. They've already figured out how to do that. So I just skedaddled up the stairs, sat down with our tech guys, and they taught us how to take donations. So in the same way that the internet came from the Department of Defense, right? Online giving came from the porn industry. But from that point till now, I have just seen a detachment, right, in the social impact sector, where technology is here, right, and the human-centered nature of our sector is over here, and I've found by using, right, structured, empathic systems in design thinking that we bring people together and we just have better results. So with that, I'll take questions. I don't think you expected me to talk about hormones, but there you go. Okay. Questions? At the back.
Go all the way around. Running.
Right.
Thank you. That was awesome. So with regards to design thinking resources, how long is that journey? If we have a team that has no experience or expertise or even comfort with fathoming such incredible things, where would you recommend that we start? Should we seek out professional advice? Is there ever a time where it is not an appropriate fit for an organization?
I have a hard time thinking where it would never be an appropriate fit. But the resources are freely available, so designingscx.com. But when we bring people together to do it, they haven't prepared beforehand. And 4 hours from start to finish, 1 hour explanation of what we're doing, 3 hours of working together, solid results. So, when you think that people wear many hats, they have lots of other things to do, people can just walk in the room, work for a few hours with facilitation. That means someone would have to learn internally how to be able to facilitate and understand the process. And I think the greater challenge is structuring what came out of the day. That demands, right, very big brain power to synthesize the results. But you can be trained to do that pretty quickly. And I think it's appropriate for anyone. Yep.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I'm part of a company that is maybe about 2 years old now, when we're quite a little baby, and we're trying to grow as fast as possible. A big one for us is getting people to know that we exist, because we are so small. We're a cancer foundation, so we're trying to advocate for resources in the political side and realm, as well as trying to put programs on the ground so families who are dealing with childhood cancer and blood disorders can seek help not only in a medical way, but also for social issues, financial resourcing, and otherwise. So for me, I think a big question is, right now, a lot of our community is our friends and our family, and our big one is, how do we reach people who are outside of our friend circles and then engage them in which they can then be action-based?
And so the question is, how does design thinking fit into the growth challenges that you have?
Yes.
So just to step back and explain, often design thinking is first leveraged with discovery, right? So you need, as an organization, to say, if the outcomes that we would like to see at the end of this engagement are, right, to broaden the constituent base outside of friends and family and nearby constituents, then the discovery has to, right, you have to look at organizations who have done the same, right, that what are the kinds of channels and approaches to be able to be, so that discovery will inform the personas, because in the discovery you might say, here are 4 kinds of people we would like to find. And by doing that discovery, it informs the persona development, which informs, right, the facilitated session and subsequently the action plan, for example, for your growth. Does that make sense? Yeah.
One more question, right here.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
One of the limiting factors in doing more of this work for organizations is really comes down to resources, both funding resources. So they're already working on a very tight budget. Funders, as you know, don't like to fund overhead. We talked about that earlier.
Yes.
So to actually have the capacity to do this work financially, and then also staff time. You need to
That's
pull
correct.
people, into this work. So how do you make a case for funders to actually support something like this? Because I think that's a big challenge.
Yeah, so quite separately, we'll make sure that we share. We've got a lovely document that's 12 case studies of results and impacts. So some of the impacts are around technology improvements, some are around funding increases, some are around growth of the number of engaged individuals. So I think you need to kind of gather these case studies and have them at your fingertips to show others that it's worthwhile. So one thing we'll make sure we do is share the 12 case study document and make sure people have that. So yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much. That was super amazing.
Good.